Hey, welcome. So, when you hear the word evolution, what's the first thing that pops into your head? I bet for most of us it's Darwin, right? Physical changes, random mutations, survival of the fittest. But what if there's a whole other kind of evolution? One that doesn't happen over millennia in our bodies, but right here, in our own minds, during our own lifetime. Today, we're diving into this incredible model from the Bhagavad Gita that maps out exactly that.
So let's just start with the big question that this ancient wisdom kind of puts on the table. Is this physical, survival-based evolution, is that the whole story? Or could there be another way to look at our growth, a framework for our own personal, psychological, and even spiritual development?
And that's where the Bhagavad Gita comes in, with this really compelling alternative, the Guna Evolution Model. See, this isn't about the evolution of different species. It's about the evolution of consciousness itself. It lays out a journey of intentional change, of transforming our inner world. So let's see what that actually looks like.
Now, before we can even think about climbing this ladder of consciousness, we've got to understand what the rungs are made of. In Vedanta, they're called the Gunas, which are basically the three fundamental modes of nature that make up our entire psychological reality.
A simple way to think about these gunas is like they're the primary colors of our consciousness. First, you've got tamas. That's the energy of inertia, darkness, and ignorance. Then there's rajas, which is all about action, passion, that fiery, ambitious energy. And finally, you have sattva, which is the quality of harmony, clarity, and goodness. Pretty much every thought we have, every action we take, is some kind of mix of these three. So, how do these building blocks actually create the different stages of our inner evolution? Well, the Gita outlines this four-stage journey. It's like a ladder, moving from a state of just surviving all the way up to complete freedom. Let's start at the very bottom. The first stage is what's called the tamasic human. You can picture this as the starting point, the ground floor of our conscious evolution. It's a state that's really dominated by inertia, by confusion, and a very basic survival instinct. And this state is surprisingly relatable. Have you ever felt just stuck in a rut? That is a perfect modern way to describe Tamas. It's laziness, it's that victim mindset, having absolutely no clear direction. So what could possibly push someone out of this? Well, the key insight here is that it's often necessity. Pain and struggle, those become the very triggers for change, basically forcing us to act and evolve.
The Gita itself describes this state with, honestly, striking clarity. It says, Tamas, born of ignorance, it deludes us through laziness and sleep. It's such a powerful description of this foundational, but also deeply limiting state of being.
Now, once we evolve out of that inertia, we jump into the next stage, the rajasic. And this is the complete opposite. It's the world of action, of passion, ambition. It's all about getting things done.
So if Tamas is being stuck, rajas is the hustle. Think about modern hustle culture. That is pure rajas. It's driven by that desire for success, for power, for wealth. It's a state of super high energy, hard work, and competition, but it also comes with this constant restlessness. And the trigger to evolve here isn't pain anymore, it's dissatisfaction. It's that feeling of hitting a goal and immediately thinking, okay, what's next? Is this really all there is?
And right here, this is the subtle trap of rajas. The Gita says it binds the soul through attachment to fruitive actions, which, in other words, means being attached to the results of what you do. So even though it's a huge step up from inertia, it's still its own kind of prison, because your happiness is completely tied to things outside of yourself. This brings us to the third stage, the sattvic human. And this is a really profound shift. It's a move from external doing to internal being. It's a state dominated by clarity, by wisdom, and by a real inner peace. At this stage, the focus is no longer on collecting stuff, but on seeking truth and understanding. A sattvic person has a calm mind. They live an ethical life. They have a deep compassion for others. But what could possibly be the trigger to evolve from such a positive state? Well, it's the deepest question of all. Who am I? This self-inquiry is what propels someone toward the final stage. But even here, the Gita points out a very, very subtle attachment. The sattvic state, this mode of goodness, can bind us because we get attached to our own happiness and our own knowledge, It feels good to be wise and peaceful, and we can get attached to that feeling itself. How often do we get caught up in feeling good or right? So what could possibly lie beyond even goodness and clarity? The fourth and final stage is the transcendent human, or gunatita, which means one who has gone beyond all three gunas.
This is the ultimate state of freedom. The Gunatita is like a neutral observer. a witness to the whole play of the Gunas, without being controlled by any of them. They experience total equanimity, total freedom from the ego's constant push and pull. In another text, the Mandukya Upanishad, this is described as Turiya, the fourth state, beyond waking, dreaming, and even deep sleep. It is, simply put, the attainment of liberation.
So let's just pull back for a second and look at the entire ladder. You start with the inertia of the tamasic state, you move through the ambition of the rajasic, up to the harmony of the sattvic, and finally, you reach the complete freedom of the gunatita, the one who transcends them all. It's a really complete and powerful roadmap for our inner growth.
Okay, so now let's put this model side by side with the one we all started with. How does this Guna-based evolution really stack up against Darwin's model?
I mean, the differences are just profound. Darwin's model is physical, right? It's based on survival, it's driven by random change, and it doesn't really have a final purpose. The Guna model, on the other hand, is psychological and spiritual. It's based on consciousness, it's driven by intentional transformation, and it has a very clear ultimate purpose, liberation or moksha.
Now, I know this might all sound a little abstract, but here's where it becomes incredibly practical and useful. This is not about boxing people into permanent categories. It's a dynamic map of your own mind.
And this, for me, is probably the most important takeaway of all. These stages are not fixed personality types. You are not a tamasic person or a rajasic person forever. They are fluid states that every single one of us moves between all the time.
I mean, just think about your own day. You might wake up feeling totally lethargic, wanting to hit snooze again and again. That's Tamas. Then you jump into your work, driven and focused on a deadline. That's Rajas. And later that evening, maybe you spend some time quietly reading or meditating, and that's Satva. We cycle through these states constantly.
And this brings us to what is easily the most empowering part of this entire model. Think about it. Unlike biological evolution, this inner evolution is intentional. When you feel stuck in that tamasic laziness, you can actually choose an action to shift yourself into rajas. When you feel completely burned out by that rajasic ambition, you can choose reflection to cultivate some sattva. You have the agency. You're in the driver's seat.
So I'll leave you with this one question to think about. As you're listening to this, as you go about the rest of your day, just take a moment to notice. Which energy, which guna, is most dominant in you right now? And more importantly, which one do you choose to cultivate next?